I just wanted to say it's a real honor to be speaking to this group, and I feel always kind of abashed. I guess in principle I'm an educator, but not with the hard job that real educators have, right? It's teaching at an elite school is incredibly easy work. Sometimes I have nightmares when I actually dream that I'm a junior high school teacher and wake up in a cold sweat, because I understand just how incredibly hard that is, and how much it deserves to be and is not sufficiently honored by our society. I do want to talk a few themes about where we are right now. Obviously, certainly I spend most of my time now worrying about this incredible economic mess we've gotten into. I almost actually feel that's the wrong word. It's a mess, certainly. It's a snafu. It's a screw up, but it's one that has enormous human consequences. What came out of the 70s and what has defined the way we remember the 70s, wrongly, is, well, call it Reaganism, which is first and foremost the notion that government is always the problem, never the solution, and that big government is the issue. It's not too far off to say that state and local government is a school district with a police department. That if you ask, and if you want to think, when we talk about public workers, those armies of bureaucrats don't exist. They are, if you want to think, what does it mean to talk about a public worker? The answer is basically it's a teacher. That's who you should be thinking of. That corrects a lot of myths, by the way. So people will talk about, will throw some number at you saying, well, on average, public sector workers are paid more than the average American worker. Well, that's because public sector workers are basically teachers with a lot of education, who are paid less than workers with comparable levels of education in the private sector. This is not, there is not, right? There is this notion is all wrong. Anyway, we came in, but the myths trumped the reality a lot. And politically, we had a sharp swing, and we still are living in this mythical realm where too big government and overpaid workers are the core of the problem. One of the big effects of that, which resonates down to the present, was the tremendous shift in labor relations that took place mostly during the 1980s, where so we as we all know, unions were once a large part of American life. Now they've been virtually driven out of the private sector and survive mainly in the public sector, and that's under attack. And a lot of people talk of it as if, well, that's what had to happen, right? The world changed. It's the 21st century. People who say that we can't have effective collective bargaining, we can't have organizations representing workers and compete in the world economy, should look around a bit. One of the funnier things has been the way that a number of American conservatives have discovered that they love Germany. That it's because the Germans talk fiscal austerity. They don't actually do it as much as they talk. But anyway, but I wonder if these people have actually looked at Germany otherwise. Looked at a welfare state, a system of social insurance that's beyond the wildest dreams of American progressives, and a workforce that is more than twice as unionized as our workforce, which somehow doesn't stop the Germans from competing very effectively in the world economy. I've been seeing lately people talking about Sweden. Suddenly, I've been seeing articles saying Sweden is the star of this recovery. It's not actually all that good, but it's certainly doing a lot better than we are, with 78% of its workers unionized. Think about that. So all of this was a mythology that was sold to us, and unfortunately continues to shape the way we discuss things, the way we react. A lot of our political system is saying that the answer to this crisis created by runaway belief in that the market is always right and the government is always wrong is to do more of what got us into it. And what's actually happened, if you think that somehow government employment destroys private employment, well, gee, we actually have 500,000 fewer people working for government in the United States that we did when President Obama took office. That doesn't seem to have helped stimulate private job creation. We've actually seen actual purchases of stuff, actual spending on goods and services as opposed to emergency aid is actually down substantially over the past 3 quarters. Seems to be associated with the economy slowing. Basically, we've spent most of the past year doing exactly what the people who say that less government, less intervention is what we need. We've spent the past 9 to 12 months doing exactly that, not so deliberately, but in practice, and it's actually making things worse, of course. We're actually losing the future pretty fast with all of this. Both the downgrading, the harm being done to basic public services, above all education, and the fact that mass unemployment is a terrible thing for almost everybody. This is where I'm supposed to end with an upbeat note. I'm obviously not happy. I certainly appreciate the political constraints under which the president operates. I do wish he would not so often actually echo the talking points of the other side. What I will say is this. I got seriously involved in tracking politics. Well, I've been writing for the Times for 11 years, and for almost from day one, it turned out it was a very intense and very frustrating political environment. But the thing I guess I've learned is that the story is never over. That there are always second chances. Also, always second chances to lose as well. A lot of us thought that November 2008 was a turning point, which turns out not to have been. But a lot of people thought that November 2004 was the end of any progressive ideals, and that wasn't true either. So we keep on plugging, keep on pushing for the right thing, and hope that over time we can actually turn this thing around and remember what this country is supposed to be about. Thank you.
We will be sitting over there, and we will be viewing your questions and comments throughout the session, and we'll be selecting some of them to be answered. How can we bring back the middle class if labor is being consistently attacked and undermined?
Yeah, well, you can't. I mean, you ask about what does it take. This actually, I'm going to give
I'm sorry, that was from Saya, and it just says, Saya, teach. There she is.
There we go. So, I'm actually going to give a probably too long, too wonky answer. Among progressive economists, there's a kind of long-standing debate, people who share the same goals, about can you have basically a let capitalism rip economy and then fix it all through aftermarket? So is it enough to have universal health care and a good social safety net and all of that? And certainly those are things we really need to have and that we don't have enough of in this country. We really do want to have those things, but is that enough? Or do you have to have something more? And when I started really working on inequality issues, which is about 10 years ago, it became increasingly clear that's not enough. You have to have, in particular, you have to have organized labor. And you have to have organized labor for two reasons. One is that it does significantly. The history is that having a significant part of the workforce able to bargain collectively does mean higher wages for lower and middle income workers. It does, and not just for those who are in the unions, but for those who sort of benefit from the umbrella that they spread. And also because it provides a political counterweight, which is part of what Randy read from a column, that without some effective group that can counter the power of big money in politics, you don't manage to sustain a decent safety net. So the answer is no. We need to get back to the kind of middle class society we once were, and we're becoming less and less of. We need to do the same things that built this middle class, which was what happened in the 30s and 40s when we got ourselves a representation of labor in the process, and we got ourselves also the birth of the safety net. I mean, there's a reason a lot of us hark back to FDR, because that was the way you do it, and it's still the way you do it, and even in the 21st century.
This is from Alex in New York City. Is Alex here? There he is. Stand up.
Hi there.
You don't want to stand up?
All right.
Okay, Alex doesn't want to stand up. Someone who's shy from New York City.
Yeah.
Can you speak about how the emphasis on testing and the narrowing of the curriculum at the expense of the arts, science, and the humanities can affect our national economy and our place globally?
I think what's happening is that people want to run education like a business, and so they want, you can't quite, you can't quite turn every classroom into a profit center, but you start looking for these, measurable metrics, and we're going to try and do it. And it doesn't work that way. And actually, by and large, it doesn't work that way very well even in business, but it doesn't, certainly doesn't work for education. And you look at the systems that do really, really well internationally, systems like the French system or the Finnish system and so on, and they don't do any of this stuff. What they do is they respect teachers, they pay a lot of attention to education, they provide actually healthy and nutritious school lunches. They do all the things that we're moving away from. They don't say, okay, we're going to have some scorecard which is entirely mechanical, and that's going to solve our problems. So this is, it probably does some direct damage. More the point is taking our eye off the ball, which is having a good education system.
So, can we thank Paul Krugman again for this amazing session?
Yeah.